I recognize the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Posey, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Dees, why is it important that the U.S. lead this standards process, developing standards?
Thank you so much for that question. Just as we want to set the norms of behavior in space, we want to be able to have a good standards regime within the United States that the entire international community follows. And the challenge that we're having right now is if we're too focused on some of these other things or too distracted by some of these other things, then the challenge is international players could start to develop their own standards as they dominate more of the space activities.
Okay. I heard some references to giving FAA more authority to regulate space. And I just want to share with you, before I got elected to Congress, starfighters who operate a fleet of F-104s flown by pilots that have flown zillions of missions and zillions of miles safely, have been doing parabolic testing for NASA for years. You know, it's so much cheaper to put your experiment in the back seat of an F-104 and do some parabolic stuff than it is to launch a rocket to do the same thing. And as it would be, some people said, hey, I'd really like to take a ride in one of those things and, you know, witness weightlessness for myself. You know, the space tourism business is already booming. We'd already worried about people with, you know, hundreds of reservations at $250,000 a shot to be weightless and taking them up in the cargo planes. And so starfighters applied for a launch license to carry these tourists. That was 14 years ago. Now, before they even applied, FAA had licensed human space launches in Nevada for a company that had, you know, never launched a bottle rocket. And they said, well, you know, we regulate airlines from Washington, D.C. to Orlando, things like that, and we did this real extreme over here, space regulation, but you're kind of in the middle, so for over 14 years they've been fighting to get a license that any other country in the world would gleefully grant them. You know, I'm real concerned about that. And Ms. Dees, can the U.S. government support the commercial space industry with its allies in global standards bodies?
Yes, absolutely. And our members are working very hard on standards development across the board, not only with human spaceflight, but there are a lot of standards organizations that we're helping to be involved with to ensure that we're setting the stage for these norms of behavior.
Okay. Mr. Dunstan, what do you think about the prospect of FAA basically taking over all space activities?
I don't know that the FAA has that expertise in-house. It certainly has the expertise as to launch and reentry. They've got great engineers over there. But when you're talking about what activities somebody can conduct in space, I'm not too sure FAA is the proper home to be authorizing that or regulating that activity.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.